Now, I get a really fun job. I am going to get to introduce our student activist awardees today, and it's a special pleasure. They are both young, free-thinking activists working to keep religion out of our public schools and social policy, and both have made international headlines last spring in organizing high-profile walkouts at their respective high schools. Both are receiving $5,000 scholarships from FFRF, and Dan and I enjoyed the opportunity of interviewing both of them remotely for our TV show, but we are extra excited to meet them in person here. And it's a thrill to see this level of activism, and I'm going to introduce them one at a time. And first we will hear from Will Larkins. He led a walkout of 500 students against Florida's Don't Say Gay law at Winter Park High School. It was called Say Gay Anyway. He also testified in person before the Florida Legislature to try to stop this punitive measure by Governor DeSantis. His moving guest essay, which we did reprint in Free Thought today, titled Florida's Don't Say Gay Bill Will Hurt Teens Like Me, was published in the New York Times in March. Since then, Will has been in constant demand. He's 17 and he's a high school student, but he's been on the road and in demand to speak to media and groups. I even recently turned on PBS NewsHour. There was the poised Will in person in the studio talking, and he has a full schedule after this conference. He is an atheist, naturally, and he is president and co-founder of the school's Queer Student Union. He's a rising senior. Please welcome the 2022 Catherine Farringer Student Activist Awardee, Will Larkins.
Oh my God, I forgot my cowboy hat. That's so upsetting. I have a pink cowboy hat over there, and I was gonna walk up and be like, howdy y'all, I'm in Texas, I'm ready to mess with it, but I forgot it, but that's fine. Hi guys. So my name is Will Larkins. I use any pronouns with respect. I'm a 17-year-old senior in high school from Winter Park, Florida. I'm one of the student leaders fighting Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, and I'm a plaintiff in a lawsuit challenging the law. I've spent the last 6 months focusing on my high school classes while simultaneously advocating for the LGBTQ+ community. I was in biology honors when I found out my op-ed was published in the New York Times. I missed junior prom because I was speaking at Harvard Law School. And last month, I was working on college applications in Washington, D.C. in between meetings with legislators and with the White House. The first time I said I was non-binary out loud was on the floor of the Florida State Senate. I was thrown into activism and advocacy out of survival. Being outwardly gay and non-binary, I have faced bullying, discrimination, harassment, and threats to my safety almost my entire life. Being filmed at lunch, threatened in school bathrooms, and getting called slurs in the hallway is a daily occurrence for me at Winter Park High School. Go Wildcats. It's not uncommon that these bullies bring up scripture after telling me to kill myself or calling me a slur. I reported everything I experienced to my administration and was met with only victim blaming and homophobia. A year ago, in October 2021, my friend group and I attended a Halloween party, actually a year ago exactly today. We attended a Halloween party and we were surrounded with a group of guys from my school. They hurled vile, unrepeatable, awful insults at us. We were compared to pedophiles, had our appearances insulted, and were told that we were going to hell. Yeah, we were the ones in this situation going to hell, okay. Then we were told that if we did not leave, we would be beat up. The school took no action, so we formed the Queer Student Union with the goal of protecting and empowering students at Winter Park High School to make sure that they don't have to deal with the same hate that I did. We went on to lead the biggest walkout in Florida. At 9 a.m. on March 7th, 2022, 500 students walked out of class chanting "We Say Gay" and "Trans Lives Matter." I stood in front of the same school that had broken me down so badly that last winter I almost ended my life and led a protest of hundreds. Hit it, Bruce. I think the most beautiful part of this walkout to me was that previous to it, being queer at Winter Park, we felt like we were the minorities, that the hateful people were the majority. But this proved to us that we were the majority, we just weren't being loud enough. There was a cultural shift at Winter Park High School after this. We're living in an unusual time in history. For the first time ever, LGBTQ plus people are mainstream and people en masse are questioning the legitimacy of religion. It's been strange growing up, seeing my classmates, family, and friends become addicted to their phones while watching every generation develop a different relationship with social media. For the first time ever, the average citizen is exposed to people, cultures, and lifestyles across the planet, while at the same time, algorithms are putting people in echo chambers and allowing them to be radicalized by disinformation. But these technologies of mass communication are the vessels that Gen Z will use to change the way that the world works. From an early age, I knew I was different. I was not interested in the things other boys my age did, and I did not feel comfortable in the clothes my parents bought me. The struggle for acceptance was not just internal, though. It also felt as if my classmates didn't know what to make of me. And by 4th grade, I was fully convinced that I was broken, which is something no 4th grader should have to deal with, but is pretty normal for the queer community. I didn't know how to defend myself when other kids made hateful comments or bullied me. I didn't know why I was the way that I was, and without the vocabulary to articulate why I felt and acted like this, I assumed what they said about me was true. Most of the bullying I've faced over my lifetime has been disguised under the false pretense of religious love. It's frankly disturbing how many times people have called me faggot or told me there was something wrong with me and then followed it up by, "Oh, no, it's just my belief." Okay. Or, "I'm trying to help you." In no way was making me feel unsafe in my school, in my community, and bullying me to the brink of near suicide helpful. No. Religion gives these people an out. I vividly remember visiting St. Augustine in middle school and having an adult man approach me and tell me that I was sick and could be saved. Adults affirming the idea that queer young people are broken causes irreparable damage and scars that will never fully mend. You know, I feel for these people, though. I mean, being religious kind of sucks. Living with hate in your heart isn't easy. Okay, I have a story to tell you guys. This past July, I attended a rally in downtown Orlando for LGBTQ rights. I was wearing a really cute skirt, some glitter, some fun makeup. You know, I look cute. And a Christian woman and counter-protester walked up to me, and I kid you not, started crying. She literally got down on her knees, praying and muttering about how the world's ending and tears rolling down her face. Imagine living a life where you see a cute, fun, queer person, in public, and you cause yourself so much distress you break down crying on the floor. That sucks for her way more than it sucks for me. Religion served its purpose. It gave humanity an explanation for existence and consciousness, but now we have modern science, and that's shown us that we just don't know what life is. We're just all here, we're humans, that's weird. Death exists, that's also weird, and we just don't know what that means, and we should accept that. Religion takes away our ability and our right to explore spirituality by our own volition. Now, religion is a tool used by fascists like Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and Texas Governor Greg Abbott to uphold systems of oppression, reinforce the heteropatriarchy, and target LGBTQ plus children. Here's a fun fact for you. Queer teens are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than their straight counterparts, and Florida has the highest rate of LGBTQ suicide of any state in the US. Yeah. Queer people make up 40% of the teen homeless population while only making up 5% of the general population. This is a direct result of Christian and Muslim religious dogma. As the president of the Winter Park High School Queer Student Union, I frequently meet queer students who cannot be themselves at home because their religious parents would become angry, abusive, and even kick them out and force them into homelessness. In fact, last year I had a friend and a member of Queer Student Union who was outed as trans to his family and who promptly threw him out because their own child's existence goes against something they chose to believe. We can't let this normalized abuse continue. So I just wanted to say thank you all. Thank you all for working so hard to dismantle belief systems created to harm us. Thank you for being on the front lines of this fight for our right to free thought. Thank you, Annie Laurie, and everyone at Freedom from Religion Foundation for the scholarship, the invitation to speak, and the absolutely vital and indispensable work many of you do. Together, we will create a world free from the grips of religion, a world where no child will ever have to fear God because they were born queer, a world where true equality reigns. Let's come together and create a world driven not by religion, not by politics, but by peace and by love for one another. Thank you all, and I love you all.
So that was wonderful, and we have another wonderful student activist awardee, another indomitable youth activist, I should say, Max Nybert. He is an agnostic who lives in Huntington, West Virginia, and graduated from high school last spring. Max is receiving the $5,000 Richard and Beverly Hermsen Student Activist Award endowed by Richard Hermsen, and also in his wife's late memory. She recently died. Max gained notoriety following his initiating and organizing that walkout at Huntington High School last spring that Patrick Elliott mentioned to protest a religious revival sermon held on campus with some students forced to attend even with locked doors. Max is going to show some footage from that demonstration that garnered a huge amount of media coverage, including internationally. Since that walkout, Max has become our lead student plaintiff in FFRF's lawsuit against his school. Max told us he's proud to claim his Appalachian upbringing as a driving force behind his political and humanitarian passions. With these passions in mind, he has elected not to commit to an institution of higher education or a specific career path, opting instead to travel, create, and see who or what needs him. Please welcome our 2022 Richard and Beverly Hermsen student activist, Max Nybert.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hello. How we doing? Good, good. Okay. So I got a video clip to show, but first and foremost, I would be completely remiss if I did not say just how grateful I am to every person in this room, to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, to Annie, Lori, and Dan, and you guys are awesome. Bruce, you want to go ahead and roll that clip?
You will sit there in that place, apart from God, and you will remember this service. You'll remember this moment. You'll remember this opportunity where you had to, like this chance you had to make it right. And you'll be tormented with this memory over and over and over and over, and it never ends, like it's eternity, and then it's done. So I present you with the fork in the road this morning. Don't be too cool for it. Don't be too prideful for it. Like this is what you were created for, guys. That's why revivals come to Huntington, because you were created for this. I want to have an opportunity to pray with you though for the few minutes we have left. If you're standing in this room right now and you know, like I want you to picture with your eyes closed that your moment has come and you are standing before Jesus and He's looking at you. And I want to ask you, what's He going to say to you? What's He going to say to you? Is He going to say, well done, or is He going to say, I don't know you? Right now in this room, if you know there's some stuff you need to lay down, some things you need to get rid of, and you're ready to follow this man Jesus, you're ready to give your life over to Him, I want to pray with you in this moment. I'm not going to make you come down here and call your name out and embarrass you, but I can see it on your faces. Some of you are ready to give it up and follow this man because there's purpose to your life. If that's you on the count of 3, I just want to see your hand up in the room. 1, 2, 3. Let me see your hand up right now. God. Thank you. As we pray, I'm going to send some people from Christ Temple to come with me. I'm just going to send them to you where you stand. So if you feel a hand on your shoulder, they're just going to come and pray with you and agree with you that it's time to follow Jesus right now. So Father, I thank you for Huntington High School. Father, I thank you that you've not forgotten about this place. I thank you, Lord, that your Spirit, is headed in this room. Father, I thank you that you're not going to let these students leave without you. You're not going to let them leave without knowing you. Father, I thank you that your presence abides in this building. Thank you, Lord. Listen, nothing else matters. All the other stuff you're doing, nothing else matters, man. This is all you've got right here. To imagine and vision that there's a box in your hand. I want you to put everything in the box that is taken from following Jesus all this time. I want you to put that stuff in the box. And when you put those things in the box, I want you to take a hand and shut that thing and put a lock on it.
So, Father, right now, we give our lives to you. We give our hearts to you. More importantly, Lord, we do your will from this point on. And we believe right now that life is never the same. We give you praise, glory, and honor right now. Pray it right now in our marriage and our hearts, Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Everybody say amen in this place. Come on.
I have never been prouder of a group of my peers than I am right now.
Backlash brewing after a religious revival held in West Virginia because it happened at a public high school, and some students say they were forced to attend.
And he asked, is this legal? And I'm just like, why are you there? He's basically, he was sort of confused as to why he was there. At one point I said, well, I'm definitely going to call the principal about this. And I said over text, and he sort of said, LOL, the principal's here.
When ordinary citizens find their circumstances to be unfair, they change them. And that's exactly what we're doing today. Separate the church and state! Separate the church and state! Separate the church and state! Separate the church.
Thank you. Thank you. Folks, my name is Max Nybert. I'm from a town called Huntington in West Virginia, and earlier this year, as you've just seen, myself and other students at Huntington High School walked out in protest of an event we saw as brazenly ignorant. Thank you. That event, along with those in secession, are my reason for presiding here today. So, without any further ado, I present to you Causes for Investment in America's Youth, or a manifesto thereof. And if you're thinking, well, Max, why did you call it something so pretentiously awful? The answer is that I wanted to sound like a doctor. Get over it. You see, Huntington, West Virginia, and Appalachia as a whole are filled with folks who would despise what we're accomplishing and working toward with our presence here today. Things are improving, minds are opening, but home is still a far cry from utopic. One such individual, the one preaching in that video, fronts an organization that has a repugnant habit of setting up shop in towns foreign to them and infiltrating their schools in an attempt to convert students. That individual is Nick Walker, and that organization is Nick Walker Ministries of Cleveland, Tennessee. To the average observer, Mr. Walker seems to just be a link in the absurdly popular chain of evangelists attempting to dress and act like their target audience, teenagers. However, his forward and aggressive means of conversion became painfully clear to my peers and I in February of this year, when he was welcomed with open arms into our school and collective conscience. And yes, for clarification, during the video, that was a picture of him lying on a cross and pretending to be Jesus. Welcomed by a school board in a county that has been investigated on multiple separate occasions by the very folks graciously hosting us here this afternoon. That's right, prior to the Nick Walker incident, the Cabell County Board of Education had been examined and warned by the FFRF concerning several separate occurrences. One in 2017 at Huntington High for reasons very similar to the situation we protested in February. Once in 2019 expressing worry that the adults in the school system were founding religious clubs, and one, most notably, when the foundation formally condemned the board after one of its teachers told her middle school class that she didn't believe in same-sex relationships and that non-Christians are incapable of holding morals or values. Yeah. But these were neither here nor there for the board, as evidenced by their complete lack of accountability in the aftermath. The Nick Walker incident was no exception. Upon widespread discovery of this event and the non-Christian students who were not permitted to leave, the board members displayed an attitude dismally all too common in American education: apathy. A sudden rush to cover their tracks and keep the event as quiet as possible, yes, but apathy about the real injustice of the situation. Apathy toward anything that didn't serve their own bureaucratic interests. When I caught wind of what happened, in all honesty, it joined a proverbial laundry list of heartbreaking grievances that come standard with the Appalachian package. Scenes of addiction, abuse, and poverty. The incident was all anyone could talk about through the following days. Inquisitions, both formal and not so formal, ran rampant. Among those I felt closest to, the conversational focus shifted from what a shame this occurrence was to what could be done about it. Native soil being ever important, we mulled over the calculated nature of West Virginians like Mother Mary Jones, an immigrant from Ireland who spent her days organizing labor strikes in the all-consuming coal sector, Ken Heckler, who fought through an extremely corrupt state government for environmental protections, and Bill Withers, who overcame a lifelong stutter at 28 years old to become one of the most emotive singers of the 1970s, as well as a personal favorite. It was these leaders, my fellow students, and the restlessness typically induced by an aimless world that drove me to author this letter in the home of a dear friend. Thank you, Dylan. A walkout letter. It detailed what we took issue with and coordinated our response, all wrapped in a tail feather ruffling bow. Indignantly yours. We agreed indignantly yours was appropriate. And then we executed. Hundreds of students from across the spectrums of poise, power, and privilege, in the face of news media hordes and the disparaging school leaders tasked with containing us, took action. And it felt good. In retrospect, I failed to absorb many of these trials of character and the lessons they begat. Lessons about honesty, integrity, and how far one might push the envelope of the brutally bureaucratic American education system without it tearing. Amidst these lessons, with the faces of Huntington High students, myself included, adorning headlines nationwide, the situation began to feel a little bit fake. I, an objectively inconsequential person, at least from a national perspective, was receiving call after call, doing interview after interview about injustices that occurred right there in my inconsequential town. I considered these things inconsequential only to that point, however, because on that day, my inconsequential self, armed with a speech I wrote on my way down the hall, addressed the very young folks who made that protest happen. Bruce? Thank you. So, what did we learn from this event? What's the takeaway? After all, disregarding the FFRF's ongoing litigation, this story is a relatively self-contained one. But in a world run by the uber-wealthy elite, to whom senescence is as integral as their very wealth itself, these questions become all too easy to answer upon reflection. Please do not mistake the events at Huntington High School for an outlier in their youth-led, protest-driven nature. The recent heinous overruling of Roe v. Wade and its aftermath proved that young people are more educated and involved than ever. Student protests rage daily in this country over the persecution of transgender youth and the presence of pride flags on school grounds, among other hot-button issues. And often, the institution rages right back. Last year, right here in Texas, police tasered and pepper sprayed students in an on-campus protest of the school's response to a sexual assault. Student activists nationwide were hounded by police in that same year as they protested the Minneapolis Police Department's murder of George Floyd. History is drenched in the blood of our youngest and most vulnerable who sought to create change, to make the world they would grow into just a little bit more like the one in their hearts. This conflict between the steadfast nature of the establishment and those who wish to advance, produced by natural progression and change, is not at all limited to street-level police. All levels of power are stained with obstinance. At the beginning of this 117th Congress, the average age of a United States Senator was 64.3, with members of the House of Representatives at 58.4. We are also currently under the administration of our oldest president ever at 79 years. For reference, the average American today is 38 and a half. How are folks from two different worlds, hyperbolically speaking, supposed to feel adequately represented by one another, specifically given the wealth hoarding of some members of older generations? That quandary, paired with the proclivity of more fortunate members of our society to shut others out, represent the reason for my endless gratitude toward the foundation for having me here today. Thank you again. The aforementioned failing nature of our government leaders was only words, which to some represent very real struggles. In my own home state, the legislature is widely despised across party lines by sensible folks who just want to see solutions. They are to us as I sense Greg Abbott is to Texans. They've spit out one law as well as 14 proposed bills infringing on the basic rights of trans folks, not to mention the complete abortion ban signed into action in my state in September, or the insanely contentious education laws pervasive in that institution now and always. This is just one example of how outdated modes of thinking can and do harm the community. Also, it doesn't help that our Secretary of State was seen on the Capitol steps with a Stop the Steal sign. My thinking is this: the transition and redistribution of governmental and financial power should be a natural process, but our cultural system glorifies and rewards extreme wealth seekers in spades. It takes the combination of multiple generations working harmoniously with common goals in mind, while gauging the world and moment they both inhabit. But beyond the age-induced rift we feel, at our core we are people. People that can be productive and politically savvy given an opportunity. So I encourage all of us to make an attempt to understand those you're guarded against, using those relationships to make this life we share fit for everyone, so the stories you exchange may continue. I wish my peers globally all the best in our inheritance of this world, and I know that me and mine will be there every step of the way. So in the words of West Virginia author Pearl S. Buck, the young do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it generation after generation. Thank you so much.